Welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Faceoff with my friend, Mr. Ryan Galloway. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great, Kev. Thanks for asking. Just got back off of a road trip doing some supervising, and yeah, ready to go. Let's have some fun here.
All right, so yeah, this week's episode is going to be dealing with technology. You and I are both real gadget and nerds when it comes to technology, so
Fair enough.
I'm very curious to find out how technology has become part of your life as an official. So, very right off the top, how has technology sort of changed the way officials officiate games when compared to when you started? Because, like, I know when we first got into sports, there was no technology to help any of the officials along the way. So, why don't you share what your journey with technology and officiating has been?
Yeah, great question. So technology for officials changed. So two different perspectives. One is from a development side, and the other is from sort of the game management, game flow, being able to do video reviews. So I'll talk first about sort of on the development side. When I first started, you were lucky if you ever got to see yourself, working a game where you might be on, like a national championship where you were on one of the sports channels and you got a chance to watch yourself work. So there really wasn't much of that opportunity. And then when I got into I think the Western League was doing it, but for sure the IHL and the American League, they would come in with an old VHS tape
Mm-hmm.
from the game that was the game feed, and it was grainy camera from one camera angle. Um, that progressed to they would bring in two DVDs for the referees, and then they said, well, why are we only giving it to the referees? Let's give it to the linesmen too. So then we get three or four copies. So that was DVD. Then it went to the streaming version. So it's been great, and along with that came obviously the better technology in the cameras, and now we're getting game feeds as opposed to just the stationary cameras. So it was great for the development side to be able to watch yourself work and use the DVDs not only to see what if a call was right or wrong, which to me is irrelevant once it's done. It's what can you take from that to learn from for the next time. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you did make a wrong call on an offside, could I be in a better spot? So using the video for that use, and that's the key. And I tell that to a lot of young officials. If you're going to watch a game, don't watch it for the sake of proving yourself right or wrong. Use it for the development and what you could do different next time to either make the better call or just reconfirm that you were in the right spot to make it. But then when we talk about the on ice stuff, um, the whole video review process of being able to go back and look at a call to make sure you got the call right on the ice. And ultimately, every official wants to be able to make the right call. I've had many times before they brought video review in where we'd go back to the restaurant after the game, and the game would be on, and sure enough, they're showing an offside play that led to a goal, and maybe that goal was the one that led to the win. So none of us want to be in that position where we're watching afterwards, going, "Yeah, our call, was the determining factor in a game." So when they brought the video review in, first of all for the calls for the referees, the stuff like the goaltender interference and being able to look to see if a penalty should be a major. I thought it was fantastic when they brought it in for the offside, because offside is a black and white call, to be able to get that opportunity to see a close play and make sure that we get their call right on the ice. I think it was a good thing. Um, and then along with that came the improvement in technology, improvement on camera angles. It was constantly a work in you know a work in progress of trying to find the right camera angles. They started off with putting the camera angles down low on the boards, which gave a good sight line of the blue line as long as nobody was standing in front of it. Well, one of the positions on the lines is
Yeah.
you're standing on the blue line, and a lot of times you'd be blocking the camera. So then they moved the camera up higher, and they put cameras on both sides. They put overhead cameras that they constantly adjusted to make sure that the crossbar wasn't blocking the view of the goal line, so that you could actually see the puck cross the goal line. Uh, yeah, it's been constantly an improvement in the technology of going from the grainy cameras we had on the VHS tape to the high definition 60, 120, whatever it was, frames per second to get those close calls. So technology's certainly come a long way.
And do you sort of remember what the progression was? Like, did they only do like goal line video reviews or offsides, or did it sort of all come in at once, or was it sort of
No, it was a gradual progression, and of
okay,
course, as soon as something happens in a game that might impact a team's opportunity to work the playoffs, or it's a Stanley Cup Finals where a missed stoppage, a play occurs that's a detrimental call that leads to a goal, then the knee jerk reaction is, okay, well, we have the technology, let's use it. And so it's being used more and more. And a lot of times I think it's benefited the game. I think there's some calls that I think we could really benefit from using um, the video review. And nobody likes to see the game slowed down, but nobody likes to see a mistake happen that can be easily corrected by the use of technology. So,
so yeah, no, that's awesome that you're actually being able to review that to make sure the right call has been made. But like for some of our viewers that may not know, why don't you sort of go through the hockey rink now and let them know what technology cameras are available. Like we had mentioned, goal line and offsides, but where else is there that kind of technology built into a hockey rink?
and I'd be guessing to see the number of cameras. I'll go to the so I'm supervising for one of the Division One college leagues here in the states, and for example, at that level, we've got 8 camera angles that we can go to use for reviews. I'd say it's probably 13, 14 different camera angles. By the time you factor in the in-house cameras to the broadcast feeds that they have access to, um, yeah, there's a lot of different camera angles, and it's amazing. The game is so quick and stuff happens so fast that we had a play this past weekend where from one angle it looks like a perfectly good hit, but then you get the backside angle and you go, oh, geez, he did get the elbow up and made contact with the head. Um, so it's imperative that you do have as many camera angles as possible to get that right view. Um, and the other one that's been a really interesting addition has been the tracker pucks or the tracker chips in the pucks.
Mm.
So now there's a computer chip in the puck that it shows the positioning of the puck, the speed of the puck, where the puck is on the ice. Um, we've had times early in the tracker puck where the linesman might have not dropped the puck off at the penalty box, and now there's 2 pucks out on the ice. One happens to be in the linesman's pocket. So, like, there's a lot of information. It's amazing the amount of detail and information that's picked up. The player tracking now, the chips that they wear that are part of their jersey that shows their speed, shows their position on the ice, shows their time on the ice. When they actually hit the ice versus when they're sitting on the bench. So it's absolutely amazing where the technology's gone, and things like the tracker puck. Hopefully it gets to the point where there's no longer that debate of camera angles to say whether it was a high stick or whether the puck actually crossed the goal line. Hopefully we get to the point where that technology can definitively say, the height of the puck off the ice or whether it actually crossed the goal line.
Um, like we had said, video review has sort of become a major part of officiating. So, what are some of the major benefits? Like you were mentioning, a hit from a different camera angle shows that the elbow did come up. So, what are some other types of benefits by having this video review in play?
Well, I think ultimately, like I said, the most important thing is as officials is we want to make sure we get the calls right and as best as we can to make the call in real time, and that's ultimately what the official's job is, to make the call in real time, to have the availability to have a camera as a backup to ensure that we get the right call on the ice. I don't ever want to see the time where we defer to the camera and the camera
Mm.
becomes, the new official on the ice. I don't ever I hope we never get to that point. And I think they're doing a good job when they are bringing in new rules for video review of trying to ensure that the call still belongs to the officials that are actually out on the ice. Um, But to be able to go back and look at those plays and just make sure that we're getting it right. The game is incredibly fast. I've had offside plays that come down to a single frame at high definition speed and um, um, the quality of the camera, where even under those circumstances we still can't get a definitive answer. So like it's an incredibly fast game, that even the key part of making that decision is lost in the transition from frame number 45 to 46. So the technology is going to keep getting better,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, ultimately the hope is that we get the calls right.
And like you say, you have been involved in that. Have you been involved with overturning calls as well by a video review, or is that sort of more of actually no? Linesmen are responsible for offside, so you do some video review of that as well, don't you?
Sure, yeah, we've got the video review, on the linesman side, obviously for the offside, but then we also have the missed stoppage of play, a high stick that leads to a goal or a glove pass that leads to a goal. Um, we have the ability now. Those aside from the offside calls, the other ones are all referee involved reviews. Um, sure, yeah, I've had I would probably average, I don't know, two or three calls a season where we had to go to video review. Um, and when I look on the grand scheme of the number of calls and decisions that I make on the ice in a game, it's a pretty small factor in comparison to the actual number of decisions. And initially when they brought it in, I was like, it was that feeling of I was wrong, and that quickly changed to the mindset of no, we got the call right. Um, and there was never a there was never a feeling from the bench, from the players, from the coaches of, oh, you messed that one up and you got that one wrong. It was always all right, yeah, it's that was a close play, and I'm glad we had the video review to make the call right. So it was never a negative. Like I said
Okay.
ultimately we want to make the call in real time and get the decision right, but it is nice to be able to not defer, to be able to go back and take a look at that camera just to make sure we got it right.
Yeah, like some of the critics say that this whole reviewing it slows down the flow of the game as well. So, do you think that there's a balance between the accuracy and the game, so that the game flow is right as well?
There is nothing more awkward than when you're standing at the penalty box, looking at I mean, the screens we use are iPad screens. Um, so you're looking at a play that's on a 12-inch screen, trying to decide whether it's whether it's right or wrong. And a lot of times we're at the mercy of the camera angles and the feeds that are coming in. So those those long delays sometimes is because of stuff that's outside of our hand. A lot of times it's not the actual decision making process that's slowing it down. It's waiting for the right feed to come in and the being able to zoom in and accurately get that stoppage of frame on, like I said, frame number 45 and 46 to make sure that the puck was outside the line. So that's a lot of times where that delay happens. It's not the decision making process that slows it down. It's the I won't even blame the technology, but it's just the reality of the cameras and trying to get to that definitive point to make that decision.
So yeah, just so many different views now you have to review to make sure that it is definitive, to make your decision. Then.
Well, and the other thing, Kev, too, is in order to overturn a call that we've had on the ice, we have to have conclusive evidence. We can't have a gut feeling that the puck came across the line. We had an offside challenge this past weekend that there was no definitive. The gut feeling amongst the two linesmen on the ice and myself was the puck had crossed the line, but by the time you zoom in, the picture gets so grainy and
Mm-hmm.
distorted that you can't actually see. So, in order to overturn a call that's on the ice, it needs to be a definitive call.
Yeah,
There needs to be concrete evidence.
no, absolutely. So, Why don't we jump on over to player safety and how technology has sort of helped out with that. Something that you and I talked about prior to starting this episode was talking about concussion spotters and how that has sort of played a role in the game. So, why don't you explain a little bit more about what these concussion spotters are, what their role is in terms of ensuring that player safety is paramount, and how they relay that information down to the ice level, whether it be to the teams or to you.
Yeah, I'll sort of go through the whole process of where there, there's a player, not only a player, but even us as officials. If something happens to us where, concussion is a possibility, the league is doing a much better job of trying to get the personnel the care that they need to ensure that they're not out there when they should be. No, I mean ultimately it's for their safety that they're not out there when they shouldn't be. So what would usually happen? The first line of defense is the officials on the ice. I should let me rephrase that. The primary line of defense is the officials on the ice and the incredibly talented trainers that are on the bench to see when a player maybe took a hit and he's slow getting up, or he's holding his head, to be able to see that and see how the player is responding when he's getting back up, and to be able to go, what, there's something's not right here. We need to make sure that player is properly taken care of, or that official's properly taken care of. So that's our first line of defense. Now every building has an NHL concussion spotter who's part of the off-ice officiating team, who their their responsibility is to watch the game and watch for those hits, and again to see where, or what the response is of the player that got hit or potentially got injured, of making that decision to call down to not only the penalty bench to advise the officials that player number 14 needs to go off the ice and be checked out, but also refer that to the medical staff or the trainer from that team. And what it does is it takes the responsibility off of the trainer to just go to the player and say, "Hey, you feeling okay?" And of course, every player is going to say, "Yeah." I shouldn't say every player, but for the most part, nobody wants to have to leave the game. It takes the responsibility out of them, of that team personnel, to make that decision of whether a player needs to go into the protocol and testing. So once that happens, it's mandated that the player leave the playing surface, leave the player's bench, goes into the dressing room, is assessed properly by the medical staff to ensure that there is no concussion related symptoms. And I've been on the ice where some of our officials had to go into the same protocol. I think it's fantastic in this day and age of awareness of brain injuries. I think it's imperative that we get the care for not only the players but the officials.
And
So
just kind of curious, where does this concussion spotter actually sit to watch the entire game? Do they rely on the feeds that are provided, or are they physically in the building up, sort of up above and one of the press boxes watching the entire game?
Yeah, I don't know exactly, Kev. I think it varies in the different buildings. Sometimes I think they might be, just in the general seating of the building, but I think for the most part they might be in the press box. I don't know for sure, but they're definitely in the building. They're definitely NHL personnel,
Okay.
and I'm sure they have access to video to go back and review and see what the reaction of the player was or the official was.
So, along the lines of technology, do you think there's anything more that can be done to help improve player as well as officiating safety?
Well, I think aside from the electronic technology, I think equipment itself is getting better and better of not only head injuries, but also just the protective quality of the padding itself. That's certainly got better. I know when I started officiating, I mean, we went out there with volleyball knee pads, and that's what we called equipment. Um, Clearly, in this day and age, with the speed of the game, that's not enough. So, our excuse me again, our equipment isn't to the same level of what a player's equipment is, but it's certainly not a volleyball shin pad or knee pad
Yeah.
anymore. Um, so yeah, I think protective equipment's come a long way. Helmet designs, the internal padding on the helmets, even the simple things we talked one of the last episodes about the use of the visors. Um, the technology of the visor itself. I remember when we first started with a visor, it was always kind of that wrap around, and the corner is always distorted. And you sort of got
Yeah.
that fisheye view, and that's being eliminated. The anti fog,
Yeah.
the glare is no longer there. So there's constantly been improvement on the equipment and technology of safety.
So no, that's awesome to hear that it's actually become a focus to ensure that players can play at the top skill, officials can be at the top of their level, and the technology of the equipment is not a hindrance for them to be able to perform at that highest level. You had mentioned that there were some situations where technology sort of has caused either confusion or some rather than clarity on some of the calls. Like for instance, like a goal, you don't know whether it's actually crossed the line because you zoomed in enough, but it wasn't crystal clear to be able to see that. Have you ever experienced other situations where technology has or provided more confusion than clarity?
No, I mean that's probably the biggest thing. Is just is the limitations on the technology that we currently have or that's currently available. And like anything else, I mean that's just going to constantly get better, and constantly adjusting and seeing if there's better options. So like I said, when they first brought in the overhead camera, it was posted right over top so that the crossbar was in line with the goal line. And somebody said the decision's the goal line. So why are we blocking out the goal line by having the crossbar interfere with that view? So constantly recognizing where changes can be made, and I talked about the tracking puck, for example, and hopefully that technology gets to the point too where we no longer need to rely on was the puck contacted with a stick above the shoulder or above the crossbar. Now with the tracking puck, maybe we get to the point where the data transmission is so quick that they can say no, the puck was contacted at 4.1 feet above the ice for a
Uh,
goal as opposed to 3.9. We're no longer relying on that visual to make that decision.
do you think that officials are becoming more reliant on that technology to be able to make their calls?
I won't say they're becoming more reliant. Um, I've often said this is a tough game, and mistakes are going to be made, and nobody likes to see mistakes made in real time, and especially when it's going against one team. But I think the understanding, once the emotion is taken out of it, that mistakes are going to happen. So I don't think I don't think officials are not making calls on the ice so that they have the ability to go back and look at it at video review. I think it's being used for the purpose of either reconfirming or overturning based off of conclusive evidence that the wrong call or the incorrect call was made.
Okay.
I hope
So
I hope we never get to the point where the game is no longer called by the four officials out on the ice.
that was going to be my next question is like looking deep into the future. Are we to the point where there is so much technology there that you don't actually need to rely on the on ice officials? Like you were talking about the chip and the puck, if it's knocked at a certain height, play would just automatically be stopped. But do you think that we'll ever get to that point, or will there always need to be some human intervention in the game?
Yeah, I don't think the game of hockey could ever be officiated without actual people out on the ice, doing the job. I think there's too many variables, too many things that happen. I mean, we've only talked about puck locations and using technology to decide that. There still needs to be that human aspect out there for the feel of the game. And not every call in a game is black and white. There's variables to it. There's degrees of it. So I think you always need that human judgment. Um, what I hope is that we don't get to the point where we still have four officials out on the ice, but more and more final decisions are being made outside of those four officials. I hope ultimately it still lays in the hands of the officials to make the call, using the support of other people to maybe give a different perspective or a different angle. Or it's really easy that when you're out on the ice you get so focused on one area that you might not see something else, and maybe that outside voice says, hey, just what, take a look at this. Did you guys see that part of it? And I think that's important. I think that's valuable, but I never want to see the game leave the hands of the officials on the ice.
No, that's awesome to hear because I think it'd be a totally different if it was totally run by AI or technology. So, but if all the years that you've been officiating, is there a piece of a technology for you that you would like to improve?
I mean, just what's there right now. Being able to use that tracker puck for more than just how fast the puck was shot, or who's got possession of the puck. Being able to use the other data points that I assume that they're tracking. Um, Being able to use that more. Obviously, increasing the quality of the cameras as much as possible. Um, you know, you see some of the cameras that are available for high speed photography, and you see how slow they can get things, and how many frames they can get in a second. Increasing from 60 to 90, you're 150%. So like you just constantly improving the technology that we have. But for me, the biggest thing would be if we could get more use of the puck for more calls that involve positioning on the ice and positioning elevation off the ice. If we could get that, I think that'd be fantastic.
No, that's awesome. So those are sort of the things that sort of was wrapping around my mind when it comes to technology. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about in terms of technology in the game and as an official that either has helped or hampered your career?
You know what? I don't know why this sticks out in my mind, but when I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and I got my first bank account. It was a kid's bank account. This is going to sound really funny, but in retrospect of what 45 plus years ago of seeing this, but every month that bank used to send out. It was like a kids magazine, and it was talking about savings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I distinctly remember the cover of this one magazine was this futuristic hockey game where it was players out on the ice, and it was still humans, but they were so protected, and so they almost looked like robots. And the one thing I always remember was they showed these referees hovering above the ice, and like these little floating saucers, like. And at the time, it's like it's such a futuristic video game version of hockey, but when you look at it now and you think of where we are with the use of technology, and you know the guys that worked pros before I did, they always said that if something happened in LA on a Saturday night, you never heard about it till Tuesday because it took that long for the video to get to the head office. And now with where we are with technology, that everything's streaming, and decisions are made instantaneously from the war room in Toronto, that we're not at the point where the referees are hovering above the ice and robots are playing the game, but like it's amazing how close we're getting to that point of just being able to see the game from a different perspective, and how much technology's really come into play. I don't know why that one always sticks out. I couldn't tell you any other cover of those magazines that I got, but that's the one that sticks out as this futuristic vision of hockey, and we're not far off from that.
All right. No, that's very. I think I actually remember that magazine as well. So it's now that you're talking about it, it does bring back those memories. So thanks for sharing and bringing it back. We do have some questions for you. So why don't we head on over to. And Mr. Ryan has not seen these questions, so he has no idea what's coming his way, which is the perfect way to get his genuine reaction to these.
Just for the record, okay, overtime was always the least favorite part of my game, and I'm not a superstitious person, but it never failed that if somebody said overtime in the dressing room, if we were at lunch, always that game would go into overtime. So I'm every time I see overtime, I get a little bit nervous. So again, I'm nervous.
Well, that leads into question number one. What's your biggest superstition?
There you go. That's it. Don't ever say overtime in the dressing room. Don't ever say it anywhere near a game. Um, yeah, it's just it never failed. It,
Yeah.
it was it was Murphy's law. As soon as you said overtime, the game was going into overtime.
Outside of uh, just watching some of the highlights on the sports networks, how much time do you actually spend watching hockey when you're at home?
Now or when I was working on the ice.
Give both. Both.
Um, now now I don't watch as much professional hockey on a on a normal basis. Yeah, I'll watch highlights and I'll watch that sort of stuff. But um, having left the ice and now taking on a role of doing coaching or officiating, managing with the college league, the NCHC down here in the states, and still doing some supervisions with Hockey Manitoba back up in Canada. Um, yeah, I'm probably watching 3 to 4 games a week of that level, of those levels. I try to watch highlights just to stay connected with the guys I used to work with, and it's always exciting to see guys that I worked with getting opportunities and seeing where they are in their career, and um, I kind of watch for that reason. I don't necessarily follow it the same as an everyday fan would, but yeah, it's mainly just highlights at this time, but probably 3 to 4 full games a week that I'm doing where I'm actually doing paperwork and coaching and helping other officials.
Okay. And what about when you were busy on the road officiating?
Oh, when I was still working, so I had this. It was my own way of being able to keep some sanity. Was that I found I had to when I was home. I had to disconnect from the game. I had to take that time away from the game. So I didn't watch a whole lot of full games, but again, I would watch the highlights every night to see what was going on, especially if it was involving teams that I was coming up working games with, um, just to just to sort of get a feeling of sort of the temperature of where that team is. Um, but I never watched a whole lot of hockey for the sake of watching, just because I felt like I needed that 3 or 4 days when I was at home to just disconnect from it and deal with other parts of my life and have a relationship with my wife. I think she'd probably divorce me if I came home after an 8 day road trip and sat and watched TV all the time watching hockey games. That was important for me.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Totally, totally fair. And one very interesting question that popped up that I am very curious as well. Have you ever
Oh,
had
so
to
am I now.
call in? Have you ever had to call in sick?
Yeah, well, we have this again. I go back to what I was talking about the players. Nobody wants to be taken off the ice. That's what we love doing, and that's where we want to be. Um, so I would basically have to be half dead before before I would call in sick to not do a game, or you know, an injury. There was probably lots of times where I was out on the ice with an injury that I probably should have given my body time to heal and recover. And it's amazing. The older you get, the smarter you get, and you realize that, you know, in order to do the job properly, you need to be able to function properly. And for the long term health of a career, you need to take the time off when you need to. So, in my later years, if I had an injury where I needed time off, um, I use my best judgment to take the time off when needed. But uh, yeah, there wasn't a lot of that, especially my amateur career. I mean, you were wanting to get as many reps as you could, and you knew that if you weren't working the game, then somebody else was, and maybe they were getting an opportunity that you weren't. So you really want to be out there. And further to that is there's only so many officials that if I take if I need to take the time off, or I you know have a cold and I want to take the night off, there might not be another official that's available, or I'm taking them away from what their plans are, or what they had set up for their night off. And I always felt it wasn't fair. Like I said, I would have had to be half dead for me to take time off, especially the amateur career, so that I wasn't, you know, putting somebody else on.
No, that's totally fair. So you've definitely worked through games with colds or flus or that you.
15 games with a blown apart shoulder just so I could get to my 1,000th game on time. Yeah, I could hardly lift my arm, but that was what I needed to do. I begged my surgeon. I said, "Listen, my 1,000th game is coming up. I really want to do it. I've got a lot of plans set up for this." And he said, "I will give you until that game." And 2 days later, I was in for surgery. So, yeah, had it not be for my 1,000th game coming up, I probably would have been off the ice, you know, right after the injury happened.
Wow, that's crazy. You're definitely a stronger man than a lot of us. So.
Oh no, no, I cried lots. I cried lots.
All right, with that, let's wrap things up. I'll leave the last word to you.
Oh yeah, you caught me off guard. I should have been prepared for this, but let's keep along the same line of technology. Um, for the officials that are watching this, that are working games where they do have access to technology in the game to make the right call and correct calls, and, you know, get better decisions. Please, please, please do not defer to the camera. As I said, this nobody ever said this job was easy. Nobody ever said you were going to be 100% right all the time. Make the call in real time as best as you can, and if you need to go to review to get the call right, if the play is challenged, don't think it's a negative. Don't beat yourself up because, you know, you got the call wrong. Technology is there for benefit to make sure we do get the right call. And as I said before, if you are using technology as a development tool, make sure you're using it for the right reason. Don't just sit there and watch games for the sake of seeing if you're right or wrong. Make sure you're watching it for what could I do differently next time, and learn from it, so that the next time that similar situation happens, that you don't, you know, make the same mistake twice in your positioning, or your sight lines are battling for a better view on a play. It's really easy to get yourself beat up if you're just watching those reviews just for whether you're right or wrong. Use it as a learning tool.
And with that, we'll wrap things up and we'll see you next episode.
Thanks, Kevin.